We'll be fine.
Oh. Good evening and welcome to TACT's Wales live question and answer event. Thank you for registering your interest and joining us live this evening. During the next hour or so, we hope to share as much information as possible with you and answer any questions that you may have about fostering. We also have a presentation that we could share with you if we have some time during the evening. If you'd like to get in touch this evening, you can do so in three ways. You can either post your comment in the comments box below. You can email your questions to fostering@tactcare.org.uk, or you can text your question to 07969279531. Whilst we're waiting for some of our questions to come through, we can let you know a little bit about us personally and the fostering charity that is TACT. But before starting, I'd also like to let you know that although tonight's event will be through the medium of English, we do offer a bilingual service here at TACT, and I'd like to extend a further welcome or a croeso to our Welsh-speaking contingent. Felly, croeso cynnes iawn I chi i'n digwyddiad rhithiol heno. Diolch yn fawr iawn am gofrestru ac am ymuno gyda ni. Yn ystod yr awr nesaf, mi fydd cyfle gyda chi I ofyn unrhyw gwestiynau sydd gyda chi am feithi yn ogystal â chlywed ychydig o wybodaeth am hanes TACT ac am y gwaith rydym yn gwneud yma. We'd like tonight to be quite light and informal, and as previously mentioned, we'll try to answer as many questions and advise as best we can. However, we do recognise that there may be some sensitive topics or questions that may be pertinent to your own personal circumstances, and we'd be more than happy to contact you over the coming days in order to discuss your enquiries further. I guess we'd better introduce ourselves. So my name is Lee and I'm the Bilingual Enquiry Officer here at TACT, and I've worked for the charity since April 2020. My background, I have worked with children and young people for over 20 years in various guises, and I've been a primary school teacher for 15 of those years. My role at TACT, I guess I'd be one of the first people that you speak with on contacting us, and I would initially sort of ascertain whether your personal circumstances met our criteria for becoming a foster carer with us. And I just try to offer as much advice as I could really and answer any questions that you may have about fostering. That's me and my background. My colleague Deborah is also joining us this evening. Deb, would you like to sort of introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about you and your role at TACT?
Hi, good evening everybody. So my name's Deborah Walker and I'm a Deputy Area Manager within Wales. There's 3 managers, so I'm part of the management team. I have worked for TACT now for almost 11 years in this role. And my role in terms of a manager is that I oversee the recruitment process in Wales, but I also manage staff who supervise foster carers as well. So you would first come into contact with myself if you go through the inquiry and further along in the process and decide to apply. That's when you hear from myself, and I'd call and I'd introduce myself at that point. Now, in terms of my background, I have a long history of working in children's services prior to coming to TACT. I've worked as a children's social worker, working with children in the looked after system, but also children in need of protection, so working in child protection. And I worked for many years as an independent reviewing officer also, which basically is a role where you oversee care plans for children in foster care. So that's me. and my role.
Thank you, Debs. It looks like we do have a first question, actually, Deborah. So the first question is from Bethany, and the question is, do you welcome applications from disabled people? Are there any measures put in place for disabled carers? Would you like to field that one, Deborah?
Yeah, of course. Well, we of course we welcome applications. The first point of call would be, Bethany, if you were interested, would be to pursue with an inquiry and chat to Lee further about that. We don't discriminate on the grounds of disability. The key aspect is that you're able to care for a child. We have a number of carers who are registered as disabled, and they can, they're able to provide care for children, and that is key. So contact Lee and discuss further following today if you're interested.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic question to start with, actually. Thank you for that, Bethany. We have an immediate question again from Pfizer. I have 3 children. I've got 1 spare room, and if I want to foster 2 children, how many bedrooms do I need as a family? Right, so let me get that straight again. So I've got 3 children. I've got 1 spare room. If I want to foster 2 children, how many bedrooms do I need as a family? I guess your spare room, Pfizer. I guess the first point of call would be after speaking to somebody like myself, where we take you through an inquiry and just to see whether you meet the other criteria for becoming a foster carer. We would organise an initial visit with a social worker, and it's at that point those visits are being carried out virtually at the minute, so either using WhatsApp or Teams. And basically, the social workers would give you a ring, and you'd act like sort of an estate agent, really, and give them a grand tour of your home. So they would possibly be able to ascertain through the live link or the telephone call with regards to the size of your bedroom. So whether it was big enough to fit maybe a bunk bed in for the 2 children. But again, I guess, Deborah, I think you'd agree here that WhatsApp and Teams are brilliant methods of contacting people. We can't really get a judge of the actual size of the room, so it would need Pfizer, a social worker, to actually come out physically to your address to assess the environment and your home, really, with regards to whether we do allow 2 children in there. Am I right there, Deborah? Have you got anything to add to that, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good answer. The only other thing is, if you've got 1 spare bedroom and you're looking to foster 2 children, and if your room was big enough and you had capacity, because having 3 children of your own, things that would need to be explored would be your own children's needs, the demands, the ages, because to have 5 children to care for, then it's quite a lot. So all of that in terms of capacity would need to be looked at as well, in terms of capacity to care for 5 children. So, and in terms of the bedroom, if it was, all of that was assessed and it was felt that yes, you've got the capacity to go forward with that, the key would be then it would be same-sex siblings sharing the room. Obvious, I'm probably stating the obvious there for you, Pfizer. But all of that, like Lee said, it would need further assessment. Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks, Deborah. Some fantastic questions here this evening. Whilst we're waiting for the next one to come through, Deborah, maybe you could give us a little bit of history about TACT and how fostering has evolved over the last 25 years, perhaps?
Yeah, of course. So basically, we'll go into our presentation now. Let's just wait for our presentation to pop up. Is it? I think we've got a presentation there somewhere. Yeah. There we are. There we are. There it is. Okay. So if we look at TACT, and just telling you a little bit about the history of TACT, really. TACT was first established back in 1992. And it was established at that point because there was a reform in how children were cared for. At that point, lots of children were living in large residential homes. And it was kind of, assessed and agreed that children's needs were better placed in family environments and family homes. Now, this movement meant that there was a shortage in foster placements. So a group of local authority service managers at that point, who were very experienced childcare practitioners, decided to start TACT. They formed TACT with an aim to grow and develop and provide family homes for these children who shouldn't be placed in residential care. So that was kind of how TACT was formed, and it has grown over that time. TACT is a national charity, and I focus on the charity bit. We are a charity non-profit making organisation, and we have 12 regional offices throughout England, Scotland and Wales. And in Wales specifically, we cover the whole of Wales, East Wales, West Wales, Mid and North Wales. And we have social workers based in each of those regions. Now, TACT is the largest fostering charity within Wales also. So that's just a little bit of history about TACT for you.
Brilliant, thanks, Debs. And just as Deborah mentioned there, I guess the main difference between TACT and many other agencies is our charitable status. And as Deb said, this means that we are a non-profit agency, and all the money that we earn through the business or through fundraising events is put straight back into the service provision, which enables us to achieve better outcomes for our children, really. And whilst we strive to provide a high quality, child-centred fostering service, we also campaign on behalf of the children in care, the carers and their families. And sort of our ethos at TACT is based around ensuring the best outcomes or the best quality of life for those children in care. So yeah, and that's Debs has sort of summed up the history of TACT there, and quite nicely. So I hope that helps. We've got a new question in, Debs. This question's come in from Kelly. Hi there. I've been invited to apply to foster, but my application closed as I didn't respond in time. How can I reapply, please? Do you want to feed that one, Debs?
Yeah, of course. Hello, Kelly. Good evening. We have many applicants, Kelly, who will undertake an inquiry and then initial visit, possibly do the skills to foster, which is the next process, which we'll talk you a little bit more about as we progress this evening. And then they decide, for whatever reason, to halt that application. And that's not uncommon. People hold for a variety of reasons. And it's generally just because the timing's not right. You know, life gets in the way. Their children might not be ready. There's a change in family circumstances. And of course, at the moment, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Yeah, so we understand that, you know, that is getting in the way for a lot of people. So all you need to do, Kelly, is contact the office number, and Lee will take your call. If you've applied within since April, since Lee's been in post, Lee is probably the person that you've spoken to previously. Yeah. And Lee can have a chat to you, and we can take it from that point. So please get in touch.
Yeah, please. Yeah, and I'm sure, although I speak to lots of people during the day, I'm sure that I will remember the conversations we had, Kelly, and I'm sure that I'll be able to put a face to the name, as it were. So thanks for that. Bethany's got in touch with us again. Debs, where are your offices based? Are there support groups for carers? And what kind of presence do you have in Neath, Talbot? Well, up until, correct me if I'm wrong, Debs, I think last year or maybe 18 months ago, we had offices in Neath. So our main office in Wales now is based in Cardiff, just at the bottom of Cathedral Road. But that said, we, as Deborah mentioned earlier, we have a vast coverage throughout Wales, really, and so as I said, the main office is in Cardiff. With regards to the support groups for carers and training, Debs, as Deborah mentioned, there's a pandemic going on, so what that looks like in the near future, we are unsure of at the minute. But can you mention anything about the training and where that happens, Debs?
Yeah, of course. Hi, Bethany. It's a very good question. Well, in terms of our presence in Neath, I think I touched on earlier that we have social workers based all around Wales. So we have social workers who are located on a patch basis. And we do have a social worker based in Neath, and we have a social worker based in Swansea, and we have a social worker based in Bridgend. So we do have social workers, a social work team around that area. In terms of support groups, Bethany, prior to the pandemic, support groups were held in Neath. They have also been held in the Bridgend area as well. But at the moment, because of the pandemic, they're all being held virtually. But when we are planning, Bethany, post-pandemic, that support groups will go back into the community. So there will be one in the East region, one in the West region, one in the Mid and the North region. So we will have lots of support groups that you could dip in and dip out of as well. And maybe we'll hold virtual ones in between. We're not quite sure on that at the moment, because foster carers do want to meet up and have physical support groups again, as we all do. So there's definitely a plan for that in the future. So I hope that answers your question, Bethany. In terms of training, I don't think you asked a question about training, but shall I just tell you a little bit about training and our training program, Bethany, in that, again, we run training in various places around the country in a variety of venues. We have partnership working with like-minded organisations as well, with other charities. So we hold training events together with those. Again, Bethany, we've held training in Neath, Bridgend, Swansea, so around those regions, which is accessible. But also for anybody who's listening in terms of over the east side, we hold training in Cardiff, Pontypridd, Rhondda and Taff. Again, there's a variety of places. And in terms of the training program that we offer, we provide a very detailed training program which covers a range of what we would call core courses. So when you first go through your fostering approval, you have a number of recommended courses that are kind of mandatory courses that you would need to undertake. But in addition to that, we tailor make your personal development plans. And then there's a variety of advanced training as well. Now, training at the moment, unfortunately, again, due to the pandemic, has been undertaken virtually with webinars, pre-recorded webinars with interactive live webinars as well. We also have a variety of interactive sites that you can access as well. But when we're out of the pandemic, again, we are looking to arrange both physical courses, but also online courses, because we recognise that if you're very busy, you can't always get to a physical course, or if you work, sometimes you can undertake the online training. So it's good to have a mixture of both the online and the physical courses.
Brilliant, thanks, Debs. And I think just to add to the support groups for carers, I think what we are really good at in TACT is, I think we see ourselves as a community, and sort of we're all for one. And you may be experiencing some difficulties with a foster child in your care, and I know there's a lot of WhatsApp groups and supports like that with our current carers, and they're always happy to sort of offer advice or just some suggestions of how to deal with such behaviours or such scenarios as well. So I think even though we have all those support groups, I think the support within our carers is an important part as well, Debs, isn't it? I think we are one community and one family, really.
Absolutely, Lee. And I think that's the key, is that we are community based. Yeah. So we do like to use the venues that are based in the community, and you'll link up with other foster carers in your community. So you'll develop your own excuse me, you'll develop your own support network with other foster carers who are local to you as well. So that will become your natural support also that you'll be able to have. But on a formal basis as well, we can buddy you. So when you've come through your approval status, if you decide to progress, we then buddy you with an experienced carer, somebody you can turn to as well. So you've got that formal source of support also.
Brilliant, thanks, Debs. Whilst we're waiting for the next question, maybe we could refer back to the presentation we have to share a little bit more information we have here. And I think maybe Debs, maybe what is fostering, perhaps, Debs? Maybe we could share some information.
Yeah, so what is fostering? I'm assuming some of you might have looked at the website and read a little bit. So fostering is basically where you provide a stable, loving, caring, nurturing home to children and young people who are not able to live with their parents or extended family for any reason. Now, there could be a variety of reasons why a child is not able to live with their family. It could be due to parental ill health. It could be down to breakdown of relationships. It could be as a result of abuse or neglect. And fostering is basically where you care for a child from the age of 0 to 18 years. And we say beyond, because, at 18, are children ready to move out? My adult son certainly wasn't ready to move out at the age of 18 years old. So it's kind of, it's fostering those long life relationships as well. So 18 and beyond. And that's where the legislation in Wales supports that, called the When I'm Ready scheme. So when somebody turns 18, you remain being registered a foster carer, but you can also provide this placement to this young person from the age of 18 and beyond until they're ready to move on to independence. Now, the types of children that you foster, like I say, it's all age ranges, 0 to 18, from diverse range of backgrounds. We live in a multicultural society, so with diverse backgrounds, children with disabilities, children with complex needs, children who suffer trauma. And I say trauma because any child that has been removed from their family will suffer trauma. Okay, it could be looking at, and I touched on it earlier, siblings, looking after siblings as well, any gender. And fostering is basically, we've talked about long term, up to the age of 18. But you could also foster somebody for a few days. So it could be a respite scenario. A parent is going into hospital and needs somebody to look after the child for a few days. Or it could be a few weeks, or it could be a few months, or is in permanency until they reach independence. So that's kind of really a snapshot of what fostering is.
Brilliant, thanks, Debs. And I think that leads us not on quite nicely, really, to what we'd be, or what you'd need to become a foster carer, really. And I guess that would form part of the initial conversation you would have with somebody like myself. And just some of the main criteria that we would be looking for would be that the inquirer would be over 21 years of age, that they must be a full-time UK resident or have indefinite leave to remain in the UK. We'd be looking that the inquirer's got a spare room. And I think sort of more than the physical things, but the availability and the time and the energy to be able to devote to a child. We'd be looking at your motivation to foster, and everybody's, I guess, for you to know that everybody's circumstances are different, and what you may perceive to be or think of as a barrier to becoming a foster carer, there may be avenues that we could explore further that would enable you to foster with us at TACT, really. So those are some of the the points that we would discuss in our initial conversation, and I would explain a little bit about the process and time frames and things like that. And what I like to do with some inquiries on the phone is just to discuss broadly some of the questions that I would ask then during an inquiry. And I guess we're not there assessing, Deb. So it's an informal conversation, it's a discussion, and we just want to help as many people as we can become foster carers, really. So that's what we'd be looking for in terms of what you'd need to become a foster carer. We're still waiting for some. I don't think there's any new questions in there, Deb. What about? Are you able to let us know about some of the foster carers that we need, Deb? So what we're looking for?
Yeah, of course. Well, there's a national shortage of foster carers. I think you probably see it advertised, on the news that, that there is a national shortage for children needing loving care in homes. So within Wales, we've got some specifics in terms of what the needs are of the children within Wales. So firstly, it's all over the majority of Wales we're looking to recruit. There's a few areas that are excluded because we have a low referral rate, but the majority of the areas within Wales. So if you live in a rural community somewhere and you think that you couldn't foster, please get in touch, because it is, it's a huge need right throughout Wales. We desperately need foster carers who could care for sibling groups. So there's lots of families children being referred to keep siblings together. And unfortunately, siblings are getting separated because there's not enough carers to keep them together. Sibling groups of 2s and 3s, etc. Okay. And in terms of the age of children coming into care, well, we need foster carers to care for all ages. And I think it's best to think of widening that 0 to 18. Lots of people express an interest only wanting to foster little ones and babies. But what we need foster carers to be able to care for, children over the age of 10, specifically, and teenagers. There's lots of teenagers who need foster homes. And sometimes people get frightened when they think about teenagers, and they're going to be dealing with lots of difficult, challenging behaviours. But, we have foster carers who adore fostering teenagers and specialise in that because it's so rewarding. We have teenagers who are living in residential homes. I touched on it earlier, because there's not enough foster placements to meet those needs. So they're living in residential care, and those teenagers, need to be placed in family homes. That's where they need to be, and that's where the shortage is. We have specifically what's called step-down projects as well. So teenagers who have been living in a fostering environment with a foster family, for example, and because of their pre-care experiences, they've experienced some dysregulated behaviours. And for a short time, they haven't been able to live within a fostering family. So they've been in a residential care, and they've, had packages of care and therapeutic support. And these teenagers are now ready to move back into family homes. We need foster carers who would be able to do that. And, generally, if you've parented your own children, you've brought them through those teenagers. If you've got experience working in the field, maybe as a teacher, or you've worked in a residential care setting yourself, or as a teaching assistant, maybe you've been a youth worker. So, lots of people will have all these range of professional experience that they could bring to the role as well, to foster teenagers. But being a parent, you've been a parent as well. But saying that, you don't have to have been a parent. I don't want you to focus on that. You could have all of, lots and lots of other experiences to bring to the role. Okay. And yeah, I think that's kind of what, child and parent is another one, Lee, that we need. I nearly forgot to talk about that. How could I do that? So, child and parent is needed again all over Wales. And I'll just give you an example. You could have a young parent, mum or dad or both, and they're struggling. They haven't been parented well themselves. and they've gone on to have a child and they're struggling with their baby. So what we need is a foster carer who could look after the child and the parent, and to be able to teach that parent how to parent, be able to mentor and nurture them into, being able to care for their own child and move on to their own independent living. And again, that could be because you parented yourself. You could have experience of providing this type of care within your own family to your own sort of children or grandchildren. Or again, you could have professional experience to be able to take you on. You could have worked within pediatric nursing, for example, or you could have been, you could have worked in a children's home and had lots of experience of working with these children and understanding where they're coming from. So that's kind of another area that we need greatly. So, okay.
Brilliant, thanks, Deb. Excellent. And I suppose you're probably listening and watching and thinking, why should we choose TACT? Why should we proceed with our TACT inquiries? Well, I guess from our point of view, we know that we have highly experienced supervising social workers that work for us. They've been with us for a very, very long time, and I think the very fact that we don't have a lot of movement in our workforce, if when workers or when social workers come to work with us, they stay. So that tells a story in itself, really. As I say, the supervising social workers would be allocated to each foster carer. I'd have regular supervision visits, weekly phone calls. The level of support, there will always be a social worker on the end of the phone, 24/7. You would never be on your own. You would always have that level of support from us. There would be careful matching, going back to Faiza's question, I think, with regards to her 3 children or his 3 children. What that would mean is that we would match carefully against the ages of the children that currently live at the property. So whether that means leaving a number of years in between, just to make sure that the family network is not upset in any way, so that the careful matching does exist with us. And I think that goes as far as to say that we match the needs of the child with the skill set of our carers, really. We have a comprehensive training and development, or specialised training really in therapeutic care, generous allowances. Deb's mentioned the buddy system earlier with support networks. I mentioned at the start with our charitable status that any money that's generated through the business or through sort of events to raise money, that money then is used to organise sort of social events for the children in care, so they have an opportunity to socialise and be with children of the same backgrounds of themselves. So we've also got full-time children's resource workers, and they work directly then with the children and support the foster carers with activities and organised trips and things. I think that there's a residential trip to Llangrannog that happens yearly. So as I said, there are lots of reasons to choose TACT. Really, anything to add to that, Deb?
No, I think that you've covered quite an exhaustive list there, and I think just touching on, you said stable staff team. Yep. We've got a very, very experienced team of social workers to support you within Wales. Nobody in the team, I think most people have been working in the fostering sector for 20 years plus, been working with TACT for 10 years plus. Very experienced in, so that you're going to have a very experienced social worker at hand to guide you. And I think the other thing is to mention in terms of our therapeutic program, our social workers are therapeutically trained. And when I say therapeutically trained, they'll be able to help you understand the needs of the child. Okay. And we provide therapeutic training to foster carers as well. because if you're going to be asked to look after, you know, a child who's suffered trauma and dysregulated behaviours, then you need the appropriate knowledge, insight, understanding, and tools in your box to be able to manage those behaviours. So we try to equip you the best that we can. And I touched on it earlier. You, as a foster, if you go through the process and you become an approved foster carer, you have your own personal development plan that looks at, you know, your training needs, looks at the child you've got in placement and what we need to give you to support that child or children. Okay. I think you touched on out of hours, Lee. Did you out of hours?
Yeah, I think the 24 hours, 7 days a week. As I said, that support, Debs, is again, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're one family, and everybody, we're all here with one goal, and that's to help the children that we've got in care. And I think just to have that support, the out of hours support, Debs, it's, you know, that you alluded to, it's somewhat of a crutch to lean on, and you know, if there are any occurrences or instances where you do need that extra support and you're unable to manage yourselves, I get quite emotional talking to inquirers on the phone about the level of support that we offer. As I said, when I started to work for TACT in April, and having worked with children and young people for over 20 years, and as a primary school teacher, I thought I knew my pupils, but the social workers here at TACT, my word, do they know the children that they have and under their care. They genuinely, everybody is here for one reason, and that reason is to help in any way that we can. I got quite emotional there again now, Debs, sorry. Yeah, I think the passion that all our staff have to help the children is unequaled. I genuinely believe that, and I'm really proud to share that message when I speak with inquirers on the phone.
That's lovely. And yeah, and I think that's that you're never alone. Touching on that, you're never alone. You'll have a allocated supervising social worker at the point of approval, and they have a mobile, and you'll have access to their mobile number. And if you couldn't get hold of your supervising social worker and you needed to speak to somebody urgently, there's always a duty social worker, or there's a member of the management team like myself, who you can call upon to, you know, talk things over with as well. So you're never alone. The other thing that we're able to offer within TACT is we're able to protect our social workers' caseloads. So by having a smaller protected caseload means that they've got more time and capacity to be able to support you, to support your children that you've got, to support children that they've got in placement. And I think that's crucial as well, really, to be able to, you know, because if the social worker is overworked and overstretched, they're not going to have the time to answer those calls when you really need them. But that's not the case if you choose TACT and go forward with fostering with TACT. The other thing in terms of TACT Wales, I think is important to mention, is Lee touched on the fact that we're a fostering charity, so we're not for profit, and how the tendering process works within Wales is if a child needs a placement and the local authority they haven't got a foster carer to meet that child's needs, they will approach the providers, which TACT is. So they will with the independent agencies, and TACT is one of the preferred providers with the local authorities within Wales. We're not for profit, we're a charity, and we're the preferred provider. And the reason why we're the preferred provider is because we produce excellent outcomes for our children that are in our care, and that's crucial. And that's because of the support that we give and the fantastic foster carers that we have working for us in TACT. And I think that's really, really important, is that preferred provider. okay, in terms of Wales. I think that's it in terms of TACT in Wales, really.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions at all at the moment? Don't have to, but I don't know if anybody does.
Yeah, don't be shy. We're here to answer any questions. I'm trying to think of some of the questions I have on a daily basis, really. It would be Wales is quite a rural country, and it would help if you could drive and had access to a car, or that somebody in the family had access to the car, that you could commit to appointments, whether that be educational appointments, medical appointments, or contact meetings. So the use of a car would be advantageous. What about the fostering process, Debs? Are we able to let the listeners know from start to finish on timeframes, and what the natural steps are from speaking to somebody like myself? What would be the next stage, perhaps?
Okay, yeah, so the fostering process. Let's talk a little bit about your fostering journey. I think we have a slide for this.
Yeah,
it'll appear now
process.
shortly. Yeah. Technical difficulties. This is part of the virtual world, everybody. Sorry, yeah, but we do have a slide in terms of year the slide is. Okay. And of course, if there's any questions after today's event, then please call the number, and Lee will call you back and answer any questions that you might have following on from today. So in terms of the process, that first step is what Lee's touched on. So it's the inquiry. It's making that phone call. And sometimes that phone call is so difficult because people have doubts. Am I good enough? Can I do it? There's so many questions that come out in that initial inquiry stage. And Lee will hopefully be able to answer that and alleviate any anxieties. And then Lee touched on it. He'll complete this screening process, really, to see if you meet the criteria to go forward to the next stage. Now, if you meet the criteria and you go forward to the next stage, you then go forward to what's called a home visit. And as Lee explained, at the moment, due to the pandemic, they are being done virtually. Okay. And that home visit it's like a two-way process. It's for you to find out more about TACT, you to meet another member of the TACT team. So you'll have a qualified social worker that will meet you on your virtual or your physical visit if it is post-pandemic. And they'll ask you lots of questions about you, your life, your family, your lifestyle, and for you to ask questions to see if TACT is the right organisation for you, but to also to help you determine if you're ready to go through to the next stage or not. So, like Lee said, you'd be able to, you'd show your home. We'd have to just check that it was suitable for fostering and that you have a spare bedroom and that is suitable. But I think it's really, really important to note that at this stage, people think that, oh my gosh, the bedroom that I want to use to foster in is not decorated. Do you get that question quite a lot, Lee?
Often. I've got ladders in there, or the paint is still drying, or it's full of boxes. So yeah, and I try to alleviate and say, it's not. We're not expecting a show home standard. As you mentioned earlier, life gets in the way sometimes, and I know from personal experience, we've got a bedroom that's used for storage, so it's the same up and down the country, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we say to people, don't stress over that. Please don't stress over that issue. Okay. So then you do the home visit, and then the social worker will make a recommendation following that home visit as to whether they feel that, based on the information we have so far, whether you should progress to the next stage. So they would write a report, only a brief report, and submit that to the manager, usually myself, or if I'm not available, one of the other managers, kind of saying, yes, I'd like you to progress, or sometimes not. But if not, there's reasons why, and those would be explained clearly as to why. And sometimes it's just not the right time, or maybe that, I don't know, your son is returning home from university, which means you haven't really got a spare bedroom. So it could be lots of reasons. But that doesn't mean that has to halt altogether. That could be revisited again in the future. We have many applicants who've had a home visit, not progressed, 3 years later, come back, and they're going through their fostering journey with TACT. Okay. And then you do your introductory training. So this is mandatory, and it's called pre-approval skills to foster training. It is usually a 3-day course, sometimes condensed down into 2 days if there are less applicants, because if there's less applicants, obviously there's less generation of discussions. And that is facilitated by a qualified social worker, and sometimes we like to have a foster carer there as well. So foster care is at hand to be able to answer any questions that you have, because whilst we can stand there and give you all of the information about fostering, there is nothing like speaking to a foster carer. They're the ones that everybody wants to talk to because they're the ones with the real life experiences. And that's always the feedback that is fantastic for that. Then you do that, you do the introductory training. And again, that is through that process, you are finding out a lot more about TACT, you're finding out a lot more about fostering, and we're finding out a lot more about applicants as well through that process. So if it's successful and the course facilitators then provide feedback and say then it's to go on to the next stage, that next stage is an application. So this is when you'd speak to me. So up until this point, it would be Lee who would have been keeping in touch. You keep in, that's right, Lee, throughout this journey now, you keep in touch, you get to know applicants really well.
That's right, yeah, I contact them quite a few occasions really, and more so over the last possibly 2 months. So as Deb's mentioned, you do the initial inquiry with myself. I would then book you on to the initial home visit. Following that, I then actually invite you to the Skills to Foster training. I send out some material for you to read beforehand, and then the actual training is kind of a scenario-based exercises, and as Deb's mentioned, it's sort of a chance for us to get to know you, maybe how you manage challenging behaviour and things like that, and it's always a two-way street. You know, it's I like to explain it that we're not assessing you all the time. It is just that two-way street, and it's a conversation between two or more people really. And then following the Skills to Foster training, as Deb's mentioned, it's at that point you get to speak with Deborah, and and that's the checks process then, Debs, isn't it?
Yeah, so we come on to the application process, and Bethany, this is relating back to your question really about applications from disabled people. So yes, we would, we'd know more about you now, Bethany. We'd be able to assess, and I think this is where as well, we touched on it earlier, matching Bethany, and I should have said this earlier on actually, in terms of, being registered disabled, it might mean that your somebody's disability prevents them looking after young babies because they're struggling lifting, for example. But that doesn't mean that they can't look after older children who are more able and independent. Okay, so that's where the matching comes in when we're looking at those types of issues, Bethany. So in terms of the application, you submit your application, and then we go through the check process. So, and it's called a stage 1 and a stage 2 application. In the stage 1, it would be a range of checks that is required. And sometimes we need some checks to be undertaken first before we allocate an assessor. It could be that you've got a health issue, for example, or it could be that you've had some involvement with the police. For example, you've got a criminal conviction from, when you were in your early 20s, but that doesn't mean that prevents you going forward. And that's a frequently asked question, Lee, isn't it? That you have a lot.
Yeah, it is. And I think what we're looking at there, Debs, is the amount of time that's elapsed, perhaps, that the offence wasn't a dangerous offence. So as previously mentioned, really, it's all on its own merit, time elapsed, lessons learned, and I would imagine, Debs, we are looking for foster carers who are robust and resilient, and I just possibly suggest that having a possible criminal record or some sort of life experience would make potential foster carers the two qualities that we are sought after most, the robustness and the resilience.
Yeah, that's right. So we're at the application. We've got the application. We've got the checks underway, and then we're allocating you an assessor. So we allocate an assessor, and once you've allocated an assessor, it's at that point your assessor would get to know you, and we have a maximum. And I think it's in terms of the timeline. If you look at it, we have a maximum of 5 months from the start of your assessment to the completion to go through panel. We like to try and take everybody from 6 months from the point of inquiry to approval.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen because life gets in the way sometimes. You maybe can't make the first skills to foster date, so we've already got a delay. There's a couple of weeks you can't arrange the home visit because you've got work commitments. So but it's a guide, and we try to stay within that guide. And from the point of your assessment commencing, we like to, we go on like I said, a timeline, and then your assessment is underway. Your assessor would get to know you really, really well throughout the assessment process, and then you go to foster panel, and that's the final bit. You go to foster panel, and everybody. Don't get scared through it. It's not a daunting process. When I say panel, I'm not wanting to frighten everybody off. Panel is made up of a very friendly bunch of people. Okay, they're professionals, but they're very, very friendly, and they want people to foster. And then if you're successful, you're approved. And then the next step of your journey would start then. You would be allocated a supervising social worker, as we touched on earlier, and you would then go through the induction program of being an approved carer, and then trying to match you with a placement. And that would take you through your beginning of your fostering journey as an approved foster carer. So does anybody have any questions? Lee, have I left anything out through that fostering journey process?
No, you've been comprehensive there, Debs. I think every point has been explained, and yeah, I think that was a comprehensive summary, really. I'm just maybe just for us to reiterate, really, that we'd always be here to sort of answer any questions that you've got in the coming days. If you just want to leave your details with us, or just your contact number, and we'll do our very best to contact you over the. As I said, there may be more questions than answers, really, from a presentation like this, and you may feel that you want to go away, digest the information, reflect on what's been discussed this evening, and may jot a few questions down to give us a ring in the coming days, perhaps. I'm trying to think, really, what else we could offer, Debs. I think we've touched on everything that we wanted to touch upon. Bethany, thank you, Bethany. Really helpful. Thanks both. I say, please get in touch if there is anything that you feel that we've missed out, or anything that you want further an explanation on, or just to have a further discussion. We're a friendly bunch. We're always here to help. And just please get in touch over the next coming days. And sort of to our Welsh contingent, sort of diolch am ymuno gyda ni. Os oes unrhyw beth yn codi yn ystod y diwrnodau sy'n dilyn, please cysylltwch gyda ni. Wnawn ni'n gorau I ateb unrhyw gwestiynau, a hefyd just I helpu chi i'r cam nesaf ar hyd y daith. So just as I just mentioned, if we can help in the coming days, please get in touch, and we'll hopefully help you progress to the next stage of your journey.
Thank you.
Do you think that's? I think that's
lovely. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everybody. It's been really
thanks for listening.
Okay. Good night, and have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Diolch. Thank you. Bye.